I'd like to welcome everybody to this meeting of the West Surrey Standards Committee on the 6th of July at 2 p.m. in the Council Chamber at Spelthorne Borough Council. There's no fire drill expected today. In the event of a fire alarm sounding, everyone present is asked to leave by the nearest exit and assemble on the grass in front of the building. Staff will be on hand to guide you to your nearest exit. Toilets are situated in the corridor just outside of the chamber, and please ensure that your mobile phones are either switched off or put onto silent. In line with our guidance on the use of social media, I'm happy for anyone attending today's meeting, including members of the committee, to use social media, provided it does not disturb the business of the meeting. Today's meeting is being webcast to the public, and a recording will be available online afterwards. For those officers and members who've joined in person, may I ask anyone presenting to speak clearly and directly into their microphone, and please remember to turn off the microphone when you've finished. So, the first item on the agenda is the election of the Chair of the Standards Committee. Can I have nominations, please? Councillor
Greentree.
Councillor Greentree, thank you.
I'd like to propose Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, and is that seconded? Yes, I'd like to second that. Seconded by Councillor Kang. And are there any other nominations? I see none. Can you raise your hands, all those in favour of appointing Councillor Wilson as Chair? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in favour, and 1, 2 abstentions, 3 abstentions, 4 abstentions. Thank you, 4. Thank you. That's carried. So Councillor Wilson will take the chair. Thank you.
Just to confirm, I think it was 5 abstentions.
Sorry, could I have a show of hands again? All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All those against? I see none. And all those abstaining? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Apologies. Thank you. The motion is carried.
Thank you, members, for electing me as Chair. And I'd like to add my welcome to this meeting. Thank you to the Monetary Officer for reading the admin notes. The next item on the agenda is the appointment of the Vice Chair. I would like to nominate Councillor Shaw. Could I have a seconder, please? That's Councillor Shortrose. Thank you. Are there any other nominations? No other nominations. Do we take a vote, or is that carried?
I think take a vote.
Okay. All those in favour of Councillor Shaw as the Vice Chair?
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, Chair.
10. All those against?
No.
And any abstentions?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Chair.
That's 5. So that's carried. Councillor Shaw is the Vice Chair. Councillor Shortrose, go ahead.
Just to say the Teams link doesn't seem to be working. Councillor Follows is trying to join.
Okay, well, let's just pause for a moment to see if we can get that sorted. Thank you. We'll move on to item number 3, apologies for absence and substitutions. Have we received any apologies?
No, Chair.
No apologies. Thank you. Declaration of interests. To receive any declarations of disposable pecuniary interests, significant personal interests, any gifts or hospitality accepted. Does any committee member have a declaration of interest in respect of any item to be considered at the meeting? No hands. Thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting. Just before we accept them, I did notice the last paragraph, it says to appoint members of the Standards Subcommittee. It should be the Constitution Subcommittee. Are there any other changes required to the minutes of the previous meeting? Okay, so with that change, are the minutes accepted? Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Public questions. Do we have any public questions? There's no public questions. Any members' questions? Item 7. No members' questions. Thank you. Item 8, the Member Development Programme. This item is to provide an update to the West Surrey Shadow Authority Standards Committee on Member Training and Development. Monitoring Officer, would you like to introduce?
Yes, through you, Chair. So this is an update for members of the Standards Committee on the Member Development Programme so far. Member development, as we saw earlier in the training, is within the remit of the Standards Committee. We have broken the programme down into 3 sections. So the first phase was effectively the induction day itself, which has taken place, and we've done some feedback from that day and dealt with all of the arrangements at induction. Then phase 1 is what we're referring to as the induction period, which is from the day of your inaugural council meeting in May until the end of July. And really the things we've included in phase 1 are those matters that officers deem to be absolutely essential for you to be able to get up and running and start performing your roles. So for example, they have included mandatory training for the particular committees. There's also been training on financial arrangements for local authorities and on the Code of Conduct and the Constitution and decision making. Then in August, it's proposed that there won't be any particular formal training due to the holiday season. And then from September to March, we have a long list included in phase 2. And that is much more specific training, which members may want to pick and choose from. It may not all be appropriate for every member. And in particular, as we approach vesting day, there'll be some more targeted training for members once they know what their future role might be post-vesting day. So, for example, planning committee training, which will be useful when you're having conversations as to who might likely be nominated to the planning committees. So the training has been set out in the appendices to the report. Just since it was published, there are a couple of matters to update you on. That on the 29th of June, there was meant to be a training session from the Senior Responsible Officer on the Foundation Shadow Authority. But as that's been delayed slightly and there's a lack of clarity at the moment from government, a session was provided which was wider and it was about the local government reorganisation programme more generally. On the 28th of July, an additional session has been arranged, which is going to be run by the commissioners from Woking and Spelthorne Borough Councils regarding their financial position. Just to feedback that the chair's training was very poorly attended earlier in the month, and that is going to be rerun. Unfortunately, we had an external provider dealing with that, but they have agreed to rerun that session. Social media and communications training also had a slightly lower turnout than other sessions, but there was an important football match that evening which may have had an impact, and that is therefore going to be rerun in September as well. We, of course, had the standards training this morning, which was well attended, and the audit and governance training took place last week. I would say on the whole, we've had some really excellent feedback about the training that's been provided so far. Of course, we are all working at pace, and therefore there was short notice of some of the training sessions, and people have very busy diaries. So a couple of the really key sessions we have agreed to rerun in September. We can rerun any of the others subject to resources if members require that as well. But we have also recorded all of the training sessions and allowed people to watch them at home and then come back with any questions if they wish to do so. So the report before you today, Chair, is for any feedback or comments that you might have on the proposed member development programme for the rest of the shadow period. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the report. Councillor Morales.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It was only to say I'm not sure that all the members are aware of where the copies of all the training are. I have so far only been sent one training session by email as a copy. I would love to come to a few of the others which clashed with other meetings that I was in. If they could be put centrally, or if they could be sent out to a link somewhere on have them on a team site or something, so that all members can access them in their own time when it fits in with all the other commitments that they have, that would be excellent. But it does say circulation of training session slides has happened. As far as I'm aware, very few of them have so far. I'm sure they will. Thank you.
Yes, it's a very good comment. Thank you, Councillor Morales, and we have had that feedback from other members as well. It's with the implementation team who are setting up a councillor SharePoint site where all of these materials are going to be stored. I was advised last week it should be in place by the end of this week, but it is certainly in hand. In the meantime, the officer who's running member development from the implementation team can send out links individually, so please do just request what sessions you would like to see the recording of. But I hope that very shortly there will be a SharePoint site up and running where all the materials will be kept centrally.
Oh, that's great news. I was going to ask about that too. Councillor Kang.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of suggestions, actually. One of the things is members, obviously, if they can't attend, they need to view the recordings. And I just wonder whether those recordings, the core session, were done by trainers without interruption, where the questions are not sort of sought out earlier on, because there seems to be where a member sort of is muted, etc. It tends to take time, etc. So that if the core session could be recorded, it'd be half an hour, and then the question session, which is not recorded, that can follow thereafter. So that if a member does want to sort of go back to it, half an hour rather than an hour of listening. So that's something that I would, and maybe possibly have a bank of frequently asked questions and answers, which you could be built up and which members could view if they weren't present.
Yes, thank you. I think we take that on board as feedback on the training, which is what we're here for, unless you want to say any more.
So yeah, very helpful feedback. Thank you, Councillor Kang. I think most of the training sessions today would be significantly longer than half an hour, even if the questions were taken out. And we have tried to encourage people to ask questions at the end when the recording has been stopped. But I would say that ideally, members should be attending these sessions in person. And I think while we all appreciate the constraints of the shadow period, once we do this training again next year, post-vesting day, there will be an expectation that members attend in person, but there will also be more flexibility around the provision of training. So perhaps 2 or even 3 sessions at different times of day to maximise in-person training. But the ones that have taken place so far, the recording is there, the ones going forward, I will suggest that to all of the trainers, that if they're able to condense it or to have something specific that's recorded, that they do that within the parameters of a significant resource issue for the training provision.
Just to follow up, I wasn't saying that to shorten it or half an hour. I just said that the core material should be one uninterrupted stream. Yeah, that's what it was.
I think Councillor Greentree is next.
I think it was actually Councillor Morales, but if you don't mind. Thanks. We have a number of sessions which are mandatory for members to attend, particularly in relation to committees like the Standards Committee. Are we keeping records of the attendance to ensure that those councillors, those members who should attend, have attended?
Yes, through you, Chair, absolutely. We are keeping records, and we have asked any members who attend by virtue of watching the recording to let us know so that we can update our records. ultimately it is an issue for a member to make sure that they are eligible to sit on a committee and that they've complied with their training requirements. But as officers, yes, we are keeping an eye on that and would certainly be nudging members if we note that they haven't attended training that is mandatory.
Can I just add to that? The Guildford Borough Council website has got a list of all members and details and contact details and things, and there's a link for training for each member, and I don't think it's been populated yet. I mean, it says I've done no training. I've spent all my time training so far. Is it that the plan for that link to be populated on the Guildford Borough Council website?
Yes, I think the plan will be, so Guildford Borough Council is holding all of the central records, but I think the plan will also be that training record website, which is kind of the central point for everybody to be on, unless there's some reason why we wouldn't want to disclose that particular training. But if it's open, those training records will be updated in due course.
Thank you. Okay, I've got quite a few. I think it's Councillor Morales first, and then Holly, and then Bopari. And then Man.
Thank you. You said that there was a lack of attendance for the chairs training, and I'm aware we haven't got that many committees at the moment, and most of the chairs are already chairs in other committees in other boroughs or county or similar. We don't yet know who's going to be chair for next year when we get to vesting day, and so rather than rerunning chairs training now for a very, very small number of chairs, might it be better to run it, say, in January next year, when we might have a clearer idea of who's going to be chairing the many, many more committees that we will be running once we hit vesting day, because we will then be taking on all sorts of other things like planning and licensing and waste, minerals and everything like that. And it would really be useful, I think, rather than doing it immediately in the next month or so, because people will forget it by the time we get to April.
Through you, Chair, I think that's a great idea that it should be run shortly before vesting day, when we have an idea of who the chairs and vice chairs might be. Of course, we won't know until post-vesting day anyway, when they are appointed by full council, but we do sometimes have an idea in advance of who's likely to be there. I'll take on board that feedback, but I would just like to check who our current chairs and vice chairs are, because we do have a significant number of councillors that are brand new, and I'm not certain whether any of them may have been put into a chair or vice chair position, but I wouldn't want a brand new councillor to feel unsupported through the shadow period. But I'll take that away and have a look at that.
It also might be potentially worthwhile asking all councillors to attend the training if you run it in January, and say that you don't know when you're going to be training, but if we're getting in outside trainers, it's worth everybody going along to it, because they might end up in charge of a subcommittee a year down the line.
Thank you for that. I think it's Councillor Holly next.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon, and to colleagues. Could I first of all put on record my thanks and appreciation to you, Monitoring Officer, and your colleagues for organising and hosting the Members' Induction Day. I thought it was an excellent event and very constructive and useful for all sorts of reasons that we have put on record already. My question relates to your Phase 2 part of the training for members that you've identified and set out in some detail later on in the report, particularly page 18. You mentioned the importance of deepening knowledge and readiness for vesting day, and you set out a number of proposed topics that will require member training of ahead of vesting day. And for example, adult social care, children's social care, which is a significant area of responsibility for this authority post-vesting day, and the highways and communities function as well. Are you proposing to run bespoke training around scrutiny of those functions as well? Because my understanding is that we will establish a number of select committees aimed at scrutinising adult social care and children's social care, for example, and others. So as part of your training programme, are you building in specific scrutiny of these functions for members? Thank you.
So no decisions have been made about that as yet, but I'll take that feedback back, and it does sound as if it would be useful. Obviously, at the moment, we only have one scrutiny committee, and there is training being provided for that later this week, I think. But if select committees or subcommittees or additional scrutiny committees are established with specific remit and responsibilities, then it sounds very much as if that would be helpful training, so we can add that in.
Thank you. think it's Councillor Bopara next.
Okay, so the LGA training sessions were around 2 p.m, so quite a lot of us missed out on those. So me personally, I feel quite disadvantaged. I wasn't able to attend them. Would you be rerunning those sessions just as a council? So main things that were covered were finance, for example. Would we be going through all of these things that LG were offering?
So it's a really good point, thank you. And unfortunately, most of the sessions we were only able to offer one session just because of the timescales involved in this shadow period. They are recorded, and it is difficult to get a time that is going to suit everybody is the difficulty. So for some people, 2 o'clock in the afternoon was perfect. For others, it's never going to be. And I do appreciate that. Everyone has different circumstances. They are recorded, so I would encourage you to watch those recordings. But if after having watched those, you feel there are some gaps, then we're very keen as an officer cohort to make sure that everybody feels adequately equipped on these matters. And I'm sure our internal finance officers would be happy to provide additional finance training, either to all members collectively or on an individual basis if that's what's needed. So.
Councillor O'Brien, did you want to come in?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, my question was asked earlier by Councillor Green. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Mann, I think you were next.
Thank you, Chair. Yes. I just wanted to ask with regards to the development of the petition scheme, which isn't scheduled until December. Given the importance of the public engagement that we want to have within the local government reorganisation, why has it been left so late in the programme? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Mann. I think you're referring to a future agenda item on the work programme, but if you could hold that thought and come back to it.
Thank you.
I think we've got Councillor Austin next.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to generally add my thanks for the training so far, which I think has been constructive and useful. And I know it's horses for courses, but personally it's really worked well for me that they were in the daytime. So I do appreciate people's circumstances are different though. And I'm grateful on behalf of my group that they are recorded. I think the initial issues we've had have been about lack of clarity about when the sessions were going to happen, and that has been addressed. I did appreciate the email with the long list of all the training sessions, and my request first of all is that is kept up to date effectively, because it makes it a lot easier as group leader to ensure that I'm making sure our council group are attending all of those sessions. So that would be my feedback. I was a bit surprised today for the standards training session to find that I had an allocated space that I had to sit at, and I have to say I'm not happy about that. And indeed for this committee itself, I would say I'm expressing extreme disappointment. I don't think it is very conducive to inter-political group and councillor relations. And I think we are discussing items today which are, amendments to the Constitution, which are political. So I just personally wanted to place my record, my own happiness about that, about the training session today and the meeting now. Thank you.
Thank you. Come back to the first point about the timings of the training sessions. I think that's why the communications and social media training session didn't really get off to a good start, because there was only 10 of us there, because it had changed time at short notice, and some people got the email and some people didn't. So I think that's probably something to learn, that if we don't change them at short notice. And I understand why it felt it had to be done for England football fans. On the allocated space, as you know, it's the chair's decision where people sit on committees, and there are 2 committees chaired by Conservatives, so I'm sure they will take your comments on board. Councillor Lewis, I think you're next.
Thank you, Chair. Just 2 comments. I want to agree with my colleague over the council about the seating arrangements. It should really be in group order. It is in most other councils, and I would like it to be reviewed, please, for all committees. In reference to training, it's been great, but there's an issue. Because of how locked down our emails are, those that are double or triple hatters, we cannot access their emails. My day job I'm the head of IT. I have spoken to the head of IT at Epsom, right? They're not engaging, and like my IT in Runnymede, which I was the head of the service and when we redid it, we took this into consideration where you are a twin hatter or a double or in another council, and we had exceptions in place with still the security in place. As a council, as councillors, we can't operate if we can't access our emails, our calendars effectively. I'm missing emails from my residents already. I'm missing training sessions already. And as such, I do feel that I'm being let down by some of the organisation here. It is completely IT-based, and can we please get it looked at ASAP? Because if we're not ready and trained up for a vesting day, the only people that we're going to be letting down is our residents, and we need to resolve this now, please.
Okay, I think we've taken that on board, and I totally agree about the lack of the difficulty in accessing the emails. I find that myself. Councillor Mann, I think, is next.
Thank you, Chair, and I'd like to concur with Councillor Austin and Councillor Lewis. I just would like to ask, you know, why the question that we asked was rejected with regards to us sitting in our political groups. Is there a reason why? You know, why were we stopped from sitting in our political groups if we're allowed to do so? Thank you.
Okay, it's not really a question on this item on the agenda, but since it was my decision, I'll explain it. As we heard earlier on the training, this committee is apolitical. We have a lot of work to do, so we have to work together. So I intend it to be a collaborative culture and atmosphere in this committee, working together to achieve for our residents and not against each other in a political fight. Anyway, I hope that's clear. Now, Councillor Morales and then Councillor.
Just a quick one on the dates of the meetings. You actually have here that we did have the Securing Foundation Strategic Authority one happening on the 29th of June, and it didn't because it was replaced by a joint training on LGR with East and West. So that one actually really needs to be re-happening once the government, the MLCLG, have decided what sort of strategic authority we're going to have. You have enough information in order to train us on it. So it should go back into the programme, but also you've got member officer protocol coming in on the 16th of July, second session 4 till 6, which I've got in my diary, but then it says TBC, to be confirmed. And actually, because of us having many other hats and many other meetings, it would be really good if you were thinking of changing the date of it, and it's not yet been confirmed on that date, if you let people know as soon as possible if it was a different date. And so it would be really good if the dates that were in this list here actually happen. And if they don't happen because of whatever reason, football included, the new sessions are put in place in future with a confirmed date rather than a TBC, don't know yet. But thank you. And I noticed that working in Spelthorne doesn't yet happen. There are all sorts of things happening in working. I'm aware of things being sold, and so it might be slightly clearer slightly later down the line.
Thank you for the comments. I'll feed that back to the implementation team. It was the senior responsible officer doing the FSA training, and I'll feed that back that members would like that to be rescheduled. I'm not aware of any change to the member officer protocol time, but again, I will ask for that to be confirmed to all members ASAP.
Thank you. Could you turn your microphone off, please, Councillor Mullins? Thank you. So I think we're getting towards the end of this agenda item now. Councillor Sarbicane.
Thank you, Chair. I know you answered the question. I just wanted to go back to the question about where we're sitting. Having been a councillor and attended lots of council meetings and chaired few as well, I always find that this works, whereas if you put them into the party order, then they tend to make comments and then it distracts the person who's asking a question, or if somebody's asking a question, they tend to make comments, and this stops that. So I do...
Okay, thank you. We have to come to an end of this agenda item. Very quickly, Councillor Mann, then Councillor O'Brien, and then we'll take a vote on the recommendations.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to come back to you with your response to me, if that's possible, please.
I'm sorry, Councillor Mann, we have to stick to the training. I'm happy to talk to you offline about it at any point, or if it comes up in an agenda item. Councillor O'Brien and Councillor Mullins, were you wanting to speak as well? Okay, we'll go with Councillor Mullins first then. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. No, with regard to seating arrangements, I just wanted to say, as an independent, I'm happy to sit next to anybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Regarding seating arrangements, as a first-time councillor, I would have found it a lot easier if I was with my compatriots to get a feeling of how committees work and basically use them as a knowledge crutch, basically. So,
okay,
that would be my
thank you. Thank you. Okay, so that concludes that agenda item. I'm going to read the recommendations. What I would tend to do is read all 4. If anyone wishes to have a vote on any of them, we can do so, and in which case just put up your hand. Otherwise, we'll be asking just for acceptance on a claim at the end. Councillor Nirmal-Kang.
Can I just make a suggestion that you refer back to the page that the recommendations are, because it's easy to follow if we can, everyone sort of says the page that they're talking about.
Sorry, yeah, I'm looking at a different document. It's page 4. So the recommendations. It is recommended that the committee resolves to 1. Endorse the member development programme delivery. Endorse the member development programme delivery approach and principles set out in paragraphs 14 to 22. 2. Note the arrangements for phase 1 induction training of the member development programme set out in appendix 2 to this report. 3. Authorise the monitoring officer to proceed with arrangements for phase 2 of the member development programme and provide any feedback on the proposed phase 2 training programme set out in appendix 3 of the report. And 4. Agree to receive a report from the monitoring officer at the September 2026 meeting of the Standards Committee with a progress update on the member development programme. Members, is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. The next item is item 9, Shadow Authority Constitution Update. This item is to consider updates to the Shadow Authority Constitution. So I'd like to ask the Monitoring Officer to introduce it, please.
Thank you, Chair. This item is about updates to the current West Surrey Shadow Authority Constitution, which is going to be in place simply for the shadow period, not beyond vesting day. There are 2 main strands to this report before you. One is about minor amendments proposed to be made by the Monitoring Officer under delegated authority. The second is about some changes being made by the Executive. If I perhaps take that last one first. The Executive Procedure Rules are within the remit of the Executive themselves and ultimately within the remit of the leader. So the leader, under our strong leader model, has the authority to deal with executive functions, make executive decisions, and make arrangements for executive meetings. And as part of that, the leader has adopted some executive procedure rules, which at the inaugural meeting were adopted into the Constitution, so they are there transparently for members of the public, all in one place for clarity in the Constitution. But just to be really clear, those rules are the remit of the leader. What came to light through Councillor helpfully raising it was that it doesn't expressly say in the current executive procedure rules that members may ask questions of the leader or executive members at meetings of the executive. That needs to be remedied, and therefore a further version, amended version of the executive procedure rules has been drafted. It has been published with a report to the leader. The leader has consulted with his executive last week, and once the 5 days for publication has expired, which is the 8th of this month, so on or after the 8th of July, the leader will make a decision whether to adopt those executive procedure rules or not. The reason that matter is before this committee today is purely an administrative matter to ask for this committee to recommend it to the Shadow Authority that is included in the Constitution. So not to recommend the rules themselves, that's an executive function, but to recommend that those rules are included within the Constitution for transparency. So the changes that are in there, just for information, are to allow members to raise questions at executive meetings. I must correct a very minor error in the covering report, which says that 4 days notice must be given. It's actually 2 clear working days. So questions must be submitted to the monitoring officer at the generic email address by noon, 2 clear working days before the day of the meeting. And the reason for that is to align with questions to the Shadow Authority, so there's some consistency and clarity for member questions. So that's the reason that that one is brought before you. And then the second part of this report is some minor amendments that I wish to make as monitoring officer, and felt prudent to simply consult with members of the Standards Committee as we have this meeting already scheduled. So you'll be aware that the Constitution within the articles provides the monitoring officer with the delegated authority to make minor amendments to the Constitution, or where the law changes, or where a decision has been made that leads to a consequential change needed to the Constitution. Of course, our Constitution is new, and it's not really until you start using a constitution that certain things become apparent, and there are a few minor amendments that I've set out in the appendix for things that I intend to change. One of them relates to the financial procedure rules, and where the pay policy is approved by, that's a legal provision, so we don't have discretion over that. One relates to the employment procedure rules, where we've included a reference to the Chief Education Officer, which is not a statutory post that exists any longer. In the functions, just for clarity, to make it clear that whilst the adoption of the corporate strategy is a matter for full council, the review of the corporate strategy is a matter for the executive, who will make a recommendation to full council. And then the Standards Committee terms of reference, to make it clear that it is to be politically balanced, and the numbering needed amending there. Financial procedure rules needed a small amendment, and the Shadow Authority procedure rules was about the rules for amending the date, time and venue of an ordinary meeting that's been scheduled and approved by full council. So I'm happy to take any questions or any feedback on any of those amendments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can I just clarify, just to make sure everyone understands what we're being asked to do here? So the changes to the executive procedure rules, if the leader chooses to change them, then we are being asked if we recommend that the Shadow Authority puts them in the Constitution. And if they for some reason didn't put them in the Constitution, then they just wouldn't be public. The rules would not be transparent. We're not being asked to change these rules or amend them in any way. And the second point was the housekeeping that's under your delegated authority. We're just being asked to note that, not change it in any way. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. So on the first one, absolutely. But having said that, the leader is in that consultation period at the moment where the report is published, but he hasn't made his decision. So it's open for any member to provide feedback to the leader by way of consultation before he makes his decision. And you could do that individually, or if there were comments collectively from the Standards Committee, they could be fed back. And certainly on the second point, yes, but if there is any feedback from the Standards Committee that they wanted to give me before I make those changes, then I welcome it. But
Well, thank you, that's clear. First speaker, I think, is Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Chair. As the member who first identified this issue, when I tried to submit questions to the executive and found the Constitution silent, I of course support the principle of allowing shadow councillors to ask questions of the shadow executive. We are not entirely happy with the wording proposed, and so my colleague Councillor Hulley will speak to the substance of that and some proposed amendments. But this is sort of brought to light to me an overriding concern about the interim constitution adopted, which I accept has holes in it and is not where we want it to be. That's why I'm happy to sit on the subcommittee. I note, a lot of the amendment wording and the form of questions for full council too are pretty much exactly the same as sort of the district and borough model of Guildford and Waverley. The Constitution allows the leader to amend provisions relating to executive matters, but I believe the question to the exec goes further than the internal operation just of the exec. It's procedural rights which impact all shadow councillors and regulate the relationship between the executive and non-executive members. So that, for me, raises an important question. Is asking questions of the executive just an executive matter, or constitutional provisions affecting all members? I believe the latter. I became intrigued as to how different councils do look at this. So I looked at Surrey County Council as what it had in. And that is also a strong leader model with Cabinet, as we have. But it draws a much clearer distinction between executive decision-making and constitutional governance. Members' rights, including participation in executive business, are embedded in the Constitution and approved by full council. The leader has strong executive powers, but not broad powers to alter members' constitutional rights. So why am I raising this now? I want to effectively put on notice that this is something where I think our constitution is deficient, and I want our committee to look at it. Because I think what we're doing here today is saying that we can't talk on something, but it also needs full council's approval. This is messy, it's unclear, frankly, to all of us. And I just think, generally, what we're trying to create here is a shadow council, which is sort of Surrey County Council plus in the nature of the business that it's going to be doing. I think we need to be considering looking at the way that the county council, so which we pay the majority of our council tax and delivers the majority of the functions, actually successfully delivers this via its existing constitution. So I just want to sort of also set the wider concern about the precedent of what we're doing set, because I worried it creates the impression constitutional provisions which do impact all members can be changed through the executive with only retrospective involvement from the authority itself. So anyway, I've looked at lots of different county councils and district and borough councils. This is by no means the only way to do it. I want us to look at it, please. And I just want to say, first of all, option 3 provides for us today to propose an alternative. That is the one that, subject to Councillor Hulley's comments, that's the one that I will be pushing for. And finally, just as I'm speaking, I just want to note that I'm very happy with all the minor amendments which are set out in Appendix 4. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I understand your point you're making about the executive being able to change their own rules. Got some sympathy with it, but I think we want to take advice from the monetary officer on that. Does the executive have the power to do this?
Thank you, Chair. I think I said in the introduction that the executive have the power to make arrangements for their own meetings. So yes, the leader, and if he chooses to delegate to executive, has the authority to make arrangements for executive meetings. If, with your permission, Chair, if I could just make one other point, that to remind councillors that we are in public session at the moment. We've heard references to the constitution for the shadow period being deficient and having holes in it. And as your monitoring officer, I just want to give some reassurance to members and any public watching that the constitution that's been adopted for the shadow period is robust and lawful. Thank you.
Sorry, can I just apologise? That was clumsy language. Maybe I should have used better language in that, and I would like to apologise. I think what we're saying is that it's work in progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Morales.
The little bit that I mentioned earlier on about the reference on the independent person not having worked for the Shadow Council in the previous year, would that be counted as a minor amendment that you will be able to change, or will it have to go through this committee or through this constitutional subcommittee? And the same with the reference to the legacy councils as well as the parish councils in terms of our independent members being a member of staff for either Surrey or any of the boroughs and districts. Thank you.
So I think through you, Chair, this is where we need to be very clear that we'll likely have two constitutions. The one that we are working on at the moment is for the shadow period. So that provision relating to independent persons isn't relevant for the shadow period. I have made a note of it this morning, and it will certainly be picked up in the work that's done towards the post-vesting day constitution. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hulley's next.
Thank you, Chair. Just following on from Councillor Alston's comments. I do note the comment of the monitoring officer that the leader is, so we say, in consultation mode in relation to what the final wording of the member or the executive procedural rules might look like. So having regard to that and the fact that we as a committee have been given the option to comment on those procedural rules, I would like to do so by way of an amendment to the members, questions by members set out in 4.2. And what I have done is provide a hard copy of my proposed track changes to the questions by members section, which I would, with your permission, Chair and Monitoring Officer, like to hand out and then speak to.
Okay, I'm advised that's in order.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm very grateful.
While that's going on, I'll ask Councillor Shaw.
Thank you. I just wanted to, as this meeting is on public record, I just wanted to clarify. I just wanted to clarify that West Surrey is a brand new authority. It is not Surrey County Council Plus. And although we will be taking on the services that the boroughs and the county provide, it is a brand new authority. It is West Surrey. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, thank you. For those who haven't seen this before, Councillor Hulley's suggestion of changes, would anybody like a short adjournment in time to read it, or can we press on? Any requests for an adjournment? Not seeing any. Okay, Councillor Hulley, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair. Simply put, the proposed amendments are designed to simplify the member question procedure and to facilitate supportive scrutiny by members of this authority of the decision-making of the executive. And what I've done is broken down those proposed amendments into 4 separate parts: the removal of the 3-question limit, the removal of the 150-word limit, the removal of the 30-minute overall time limit, and lastly, the supplementary question timing as set out in the draft. What I'm intending to do through you, Chair, is to urge colleagues to agree to a far more simple procedural steps that we should be taking to facilitate questions being posed by us to the executive, but also to empower the monitoring officer to help members facilitate the formulation of questions to the executive rather than acting as a gatekeeper to questions asked as set out in the current form of words. So really it is an exercise in simplifying and facilitating the engagement of members to ask questions of the executive, and I set them out in the document I have circulated and invite comment. Thank you.
Thank you for your document, Councillor Hulley. Can I just check I've understood correctly? You want to remove the limit of 3 questions and make it unlimited number of questions for every councillor to ask at every executive meeting. You want to change the limit from 150 words to an unlimited number of words in every one of these unlimited number of questions. And you want to remove the 30-minute time limit at the start of every executive meeting to make it unlimited, apart from presumably the 3-hour limit on the meeting length. So wouldn't this unintentionally allow one councillor to sabotage the business of every single executive meeting?
No, in short answer, Mr. Chairman, I don't believe that to be the case at all. What we are doing here is removing arbitrary limits to the number of questions that can be asked and the type of questions as well. Of course, the Chair has authority to cut short question time, has authority also to put forward alternatives to proposals made by members around the questions they asked. But what we should do, in my view, is remove arbitrary barriers and facilitate the ability of members to ask questions of the executive, mindful, of course, that there are still parameters that I have essentially retained, even in the amendments that I've put forward, but giving the power to the chair to direct the meeting as you would expect.
Yeah, I see that you're proposing to strike through the limitation against defamatory, frivolous, vexatious or offensive questions, so they presumably be all right as well. Members, I think the next thing we need to do is move to a vote on the amendment. But first of all, Councillor Shorthouse.
When I read this, it seems to me that it's an opportunity for people to abuse the process and to filibuster and, as you say, hijack proceedings for one particular subject. I'm very concerned about the proposed lifting of restrictions. I was also concerned that the monitoring officers' involvement is just helping to ensure that the questions are worded appropriately and taking out the defamatory, frivolous, vexatious or offensive. I don't think we want to promote any business like that. So I'm very concerned about these proposals.
Thank you. Councillor Mullins.
I don't know whether this is should be discussed now or just in a minute, but I'm not at all happy with the suggestion that members who aren't members of the committee should sit in the public gallery. It's no problem here, but I've been to Woking Council Chamber and people are up in the gods, and I see no reason for that for a committee meeting where there's ample space downstairs. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The proposal actually is that that's included in your work programme for the first meeting of the Constitution Subcommittee. So it's not on the agenda for today, but it is on the work programme, and they're likely to meet before the end of July when that point will be raised.
Okay, members, I'd like to move towards having a vote on the amendment. Can we just have anything else on the amendment, please? Very, very short contributions then from
Very short.
Morale.
Just the comment about Woking having members of the public in the gallery. The members of the public are also sitting on the ground floor, the same as the council chamber. And when people come forward with questions who are not members of the committee, they sit on the row of the chairs, just like we have here, a row just behind the councillors. And so it's not as if they're far away. They are often only a yard from us. Thank you. And very briefly, if you could, Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Chair. Just a brief one to support my colleague, Councillor Hulley's amendment. The Nolan principles of openness and accountability are 2 of the 7 principles of public life. Members of all councils adhere to this. This is about basing the act transparent, make decisions with clear evidence, and subject themselves to public scrutiny. If we can't ask questions, that's a failure of the Nolan principles, in my opinion, and I think we need to really consider the amendment by Councillor Hulley, please.
Thank you. Councillor Bates.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the amendment, I cannot, for the life of me, think why 150 words to describe the question you want to ask, and that it should be an unlimited amount of words, seems to me quite bizarre. I would have thought 150 word capacity. We have 100 in Spelthorne, and it's not caused a problem. 150 words maximum on a question, I think is perfectly reasonable. Why would you want to open-end that to ad infinitum?
Thank you. Another very short contribution, because we need to move to a vote on the amendment. Councillor Kang.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I would agree with Chris. I mean, we have to make some limits of. This is the leader being open and transparent to saying that the members can ask questions. 3 questions is suffice, and they're usually in order. And there has to be. Do we have the whole day for a meeting? Well, 30 minutes is a general sort of time limit, and the wording is certainly 150. I would oppose this amendment.
Thank you. So just contributions from Councillor Mann and then finally Councillor Hulley. And if you keep them short, please, this agenda item is about to overrun.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm very glad that the subcommittee are going to be discussing the public gallery and observers. So thank you for that, but also that I support Councillor Hulley with his proposals. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hulley, very quickly, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly in response. First of all, I do not believe that any councillor on this authority is going to take steps to be vexatious or inappropriate in language in their contribution to debate. I don't think that is a powerful point at all. I think in terms of the word limit, at the end of the day, some topics are complex, some topics require context. And at the end of the day, my proposal is designed to ask the monitoring officer to facilitate the questioning, the formulation of questions so that they are constructive in content and so that they fit within the rules. This is all about facilitating and promoting scrutiny. It is not about, which is what I'm concerned about, shutting down debate. That is the basis of this. And the last point I would like to make is that at the end of the day, what are we if we don't have the ability to write questions of the executive so that those questions are put to the executive in a way that requires detailed and thought through responses. And that is facilitated through written questions, but also the ability of members of this authority to ask questions without the straitjacketing that is proposed in this form of words before us.
Thank you. Just before we move to the vote, I'd like to ask the monitoring officer to clarify exactly what the amendment is.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just for the minutes and for myself, so we can be crystal clear as to what the amendment is. So you have a recommendation at the moment, 211, which is subject to the decision of the leader to adopt revised executive procedure rules to recommend to the shadow authority that they be formally adopted into the constitution in place of the existing. I think, Councillor Hulley, I'm right in saying that your amendment is that that is rejected and that in place of it, there is a proposal that the Standards Committee collectively provide feedback to the leader for him when making his decision that this version would be recommended by the Standards Committee. But I just want to make sure that I'm correct about that, because just to be clear, the point that the Standards Committee can't propose an amendment, but you can provide feedback to the leader for him to take into account when making his decision.
It's a request that this committee provides feedback to the leader,
Great.
but mindful also that what is being proposed does in practice amount to a proposed constitutional amendment. But for now, it's about providing feedback to the leader, who I believe will take a decision on or after the 8th of July.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Sorry, Chair, could I ask for a name vote, please?
A named vote?
Oh, you need
Is that in order?
a recorded or a named? Are you, sorry, Councillor Mang, are you asking for your own personal vote to be noted in the minutes?
To do a named vote.
A recorded
Yes.
vote. So I
Thank
believe
you.
it's 5 members that need to support you in that. If I could just bear with me while I check. Is it 20? So a recorded vote is a vote by way of roll call, should be recorded in the minutes of the meeting to show how each member present and voting cast their vote, and the name of any member present and abstaining should also be recorded. If 10 or more members request a recorded vote before the vote is taken, then the vote is to be recorded and reflected in the minutes. So if there are 10 members present that would like it recorded, then we can do that.
So if you would like a recorded vote, can you raise your hand, please? Thank you. That's less than 10, so will not be a recorded vote. So the vote on Councillor Hulley, is it a point of order?
Hello, just noting that obviously as it stands, the interim constitution doesn't take into account proportionality of committee size. I just want to, maybe that's something we need to add to our work programme. Thank you.
Okay, the point's noted. So, Councillor Hulley, I take it you are proposing your suggested feedback to the leader. Do you have a seconder? Okay, Councillor Austin is the seconder. And all those in favour of Councillor Hulley's proposal of feedback to the leader?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
And all those against?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, Chairman. So the amendment falls.
And all those abstaining? Okay, that was 9 against, 6 in favour, so the amendment falls, or the suggestion of feedback to the leader falls. We're getting towards the end of our time for this agenda item, so I'm proposing to read the recommendations. Is anyone intending to contest them? Councillor Mann, go ahead.
I did raise the issue with regards to petitions that you said you were going to look at now, so...
Yes, through you, Chair. So the issue of petitions is included in the work programme for the Constitution Subcommittee group. So I would suggest it might be better to raise it under that agenda item when we're talking about the work programme, if you have some suggestions of changing the dates or scheduling.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So that's agenda item 12. Very quickly, please.
Thank you. Sorry, I think I've jumped Councillor O'Brien. Do you want to go? I'd just enjoy some clarity on our options, because there isn't a recommendation, it's options. If we are talking about voting on options, I obviously have said I'd go for option 3. So how is this going to be dealt with? Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that. What I was intending to do was read the recommendations under paragraph 2, so it's 2.1.1, and the 3 following paragraphs. That's on page 20 of your agenda pack. I think that corresponds to option 1 in the later. The options in section 9, that's 9.1, and the 2 following options, they're just to do with the executive procedure changes, so that's included in the recommendations. And maybe I can ask the monitoring officer to clarify that.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So it's good practice for report authors to always set out the options in a report, and it's important that members consider all options when they're making a decision. So paragraph 9 does set out options. It also makes it very clear that it's option 1 in paragraph 9.1 that is recommended to this committee, and that's therefore included in the recommendations on page 20. So the thing for you to determine now at this stage of the meeting is to take a vote on the recommendations that are set out in the report in the absence of any other amendments to those recommendations.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to agree some of, like for example, 2.1.4, I'm happy to agree. And the ones, sorry, I need to reread them properly. My question is, can we take them individually? Thank you.
Certainly can. Councillor O'Brien, you're the last one to speak.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. A question regarding page 40, the financial procedures rules. I just wanted to get some clarity regarding the section 24 direction coming into our constitution, because it says it's expected to become legislation on the 3rd of July 2026, and as far as I'm aware, no legislation has been passed on section 24. So can I get some clarity on what that means and what powers it gives to the MO to make any changes to the constitution?
Yes, we were expecting section 24 direction to be effective from the 3rd of July, and then the implementation team leader advised us at the end of the day on 3rd of July that it had been delayed by MHCRG. I think the expectation now is that it will be this week. I have heard rumour that it would be the 7th, which is tomorrow, but don't hold me to that, because that's an expectation rather than a commitment. So it won't have any impact at all other than on decisions that are made between the 3rd and the 7th of July.
So, one follow-up question, if you don't mind. Is there any scrutiny then between the legislation being passed and then it going into our constitution? Because at the moment we don't know what legislation says, what it might change in Westminster, and yet we're almost sort of like signing a blank cheque to say whatever they say we're going to agree to.
No, so it's been through the Executive Committee at their June meeting, where there was a draft consent order and some information about what we're expecting to be in there, and a decision's been made for the Executive for a document to be included, which is a consent order in respect of section 24. In fact, I think it may be going back to the Executive for a minor amendment in July at their meeting there as well. And in terms of scrutiny, the Overview and Scrutiny Committee have the ability to include that on their agenda as well if they wanted to have a look into that and scrutinise the executive decision, either pre or post scrutiny.
Thank you. So I will read each recommendation then, and if the committee does not unanimously agree, we'll have a vote on them, if that makes sense. So it is recommended that the committee resolves 1, to subject the decision of the leader to adopt the revised executive procedure rules as set out in Appendix 2, open brackets, to include a new section relating to questions by members, close brackets, to recommend to the Shadow Authority that these revised executive procedure rules be formally adopted into the West Surrey Shadow Authority Constitution at Part 4-2 in place of the existing. Committee, is that recommendation agreed?
Agreed.
That's agreed. No?
So show of hands, please.
Oh, sorry, it's not agreed. Not unanimous. So all those in favour of that recommendation, raise your hands.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, Chair.
And that's 9. All those against?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Chair.
6. And abstentions?
There are none.
There are no abstentions, so that recommendation is agreed. Recommendation 2, to authorise the monitoring officer to make any consequential constitutional formatting or cross-referencing amendments required to give effect to the changes arising from the revised executive procedure rules. Is that agreed? Anyone against? No. That is agreed. 3, to note the executive portfolio holder appointments made by the leader of the council as set out in Appendix 3 to this report, and recommend that the Shadow Authority notes the monitoring officer's intention to update the Constitution under her delegated authority to include these appointments. Is that agreed? I think that's unanimous. And number 4, to note the recent changes that will be made to the West Surrey Shadow Authority Constitution by the monitoring officer under her delegated authority as set out in Appendix 4 to this report. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
No one against? Okay, thank you. That concludes that agenda item. The next one is, we can hopefully catch up some time on this. Number 10, appointment of independent persons. This report requests that the Standards Committee of the West Surrey Shadow Authority consider the expressions of interest received from 7 existing independent persons of the 12 sovereign authorities in Surrey, and recommends to the Shadow Authority that it makes appointments to the role of independent person to assist with the arrangements for dealing with complaints about elected members and co-opted members until the 31st of March 2027. Can I ask the Monitoring Officer to introduce, please?
Thank you, Chair. So agenda item 10 is the appointment of independent persons to West Surrey Shadow Authority. The law under the Localism Act 2011 provides that every council must have at least one independent person. From experience, officer recommendation is that more than one are appointed. You'll have seen at the training earlier that the independent person sometimes has different roles, and there can be a conflict in those roles. For example, if they are supporting the monitoring officer in a standards complaint, but also supporting the complainant or the subject member or advising the committee. So there is benefit in having more than one independent person. For the shadow period, our recommendation is that we select independent persons from a pool of those who are currently existing independent persons for the sovereign predecessor councils, and appoint them simply until vesting day. And then later, during this shadow period, there will be a more comprehensive recruitment process so that appointments can be made for a longer term, probably 4 years after vesting day. So this recommendation is just for independent persons for the remainder of the shadow period. It is really important that we have them to comply with the legislation, but also they play a vital role in the conduct and standards and ethics regime of the council. They also are occasionally used for other purposes, such as disciplinary employment matters of senior officers. So the implementation team have gone out to the existing pool and invited expressions of interests. From that, I believe we have had 7 existing IPs express an interest in the role. There is a small payment made for their role, which would be prorated across the year, as adopted into the members' allowance scheme. It is proposed that you consider the CVs of those individuals which are sent in exempt session, and if you are content to appoint them in line with the recommendation, to make a recommendation to the Shadow Authority to appoint them. What I would say is that one of the individuals hasn't supplied a CV to us despite several requests. You may feel that's an issue as to whether that's a suitable appointment or not, but that's a matter for members, and you were asked today to determine making some recommendations to the July meeting of the Shadow Authority for formal appointments. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you. And just before we do, the 7 expressions of interest, and the names of the people are published in the public report, but their CVs are not. So if any member wants to talk about anything that's in the CVs, then you can give me advance notice and we'll go into part 2 and exclude the press and public. Councillor Nurmokang.
Thank you, Chair. I presume these independent persons have already been vetted from the local sovereign, so therefore, in a way, if it's they've gone through a procedure, so I'm happy with that procedure.
That's a good question. That's what I asked as well. So it has gone through members already. Would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. That was the basis of feeling comfortable taking a pragmatic approach in recommending them to you, is that they have all been through an appointments process in their predecessor councils. Those processes might vary slightly, but each Sovereign Council has been comfortable with the appointment that they've made, and they are all now experienced by supporting their their Sovereign Councils in that role as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bateson.
Just a quick one. Slightly disturbed why somebody wouldn't want to supply their CV after severe prompting. So I don't think I'd be happy for that person to go forward until they satisfied the process that they should supply a CV. Thank you.
Okay. Can I just ask the monitoring officer then, have we got the option to approve the other 6 and leave the other one pending for our next meeting?
Yes, absolutely, Chair, or you may feel that 6 is sufficient for the purposes in any event, but yes, you could make a recommendation for the 6 and then defer the other to your next meeting.
How does the committee feel about just approving 6 and then we'll leave the other one, and if they get back to us with the CV, we can bring it back again? Councillor O'Brien.
I've got another question just on procedural more than anything else, or principles of it. Do we know what the split of those IPs are between East Surrey and West Surrey? I know provisionally they could sit on either, but I prefer them to have a skin in the game, so if they aren't living in West Surrey, I prefer the West Surrey residents to be on the IPs.
Yes, so that is something for the committee to consider. Officers, in making their recommendations, took the view that having 6 that are also likely to be the 6 or 7 that will also be appointed in the East would provide resilience and greater flexibility for dealing with conflicts of interest. You don't have to make the same decision as the East. You could appoint the same or different members. If they do appoint the same in the East, they would be 2 separate appointments in any event. There is nothing joined up about their role. They would have a role of 2 very separate IPs and a duty to that Shadow Authority. In terms of advising you where they live, whether the East or the West, we can absolutely do that, but I would probably need a short adjournment to go through the CVs. But I would also ask what the relevance would be in bringing that into your decision making as to where these individuals live, whether that should be something that you would, whether it's a relevant consideration to take into a decision. It is quite common for IPs to be outside of an area where they work as an IP. In fact, you could argue that there might be benefits to that. But
okay, Councillor Mann.
Just to support what my colleague, Councillor O'Brien has said there, is that have any assessments been made with regards to workload, availability, and whether simultaneous appointments would affect or would create practical difficulties between East and West?
Okay, thank you. Points noted. Just to go back to Councillor Bateson's point, how would the committee feel about just appointing, am I allowed to name the person who has not submitted the CV?
Yeah, or name the others might be better.
Ah, right, okay, yes. Okay, that sounds good. But, if I read the recommendation and it was to appoint the other 6, are the committee feeling like they would be happy with that? Yeah. Does anyone else want to say anything on this one? Councillor Austin?
Thanks. I think there was some confusion. I certainly didn't pick up that the exempt document had been sent to me. I think in retrospect was that I missed it. It's just we've got a lot of different officers that I don't know the names of. We're getting sent emails from. So I will be abstaining on this item, and that's the reason why. I think it's only fair because I haven't. But it was just generally, actually, just a word also for the chair. I know you're trying to keep the meeting moving with you saying a couple of times we're running out of time on items. Perhaps going forwards, it might be useful to indicate to us how much time you want to spend on each agenda item so that we're all aware when we're running out of time or not too. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you for that. I think the confusion was that the exempt pages are in the middle of the confidential document, which is the rest of the public document, so it's easy to miss it. On the timings, a lot of people told me they want to spend a lot of time on the next agenda item, so I'm trying to leave enough time for that, basically, that's all, nothing hard and fast. Okay, Councillor Greentree.
Just wanted to say, for the benefit of Councillors Mann and O'Brien, in Woking not so long ago, we went through the process of trying to find independent people to put on committees. So it's somewhat different, and it wasn't easy. We had great difficulty finding people, and ultimately the 2 people we did find both lived outside of the borough. So I'm not sure how much of an issue it really is.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we've had that problem in Surrey Heath as well. Okay, so I'm going to read the recommendation. I've scored out one name, and it's
Which one? Sorry. Yes.
it's the correct one. So I'm going to read that we recommend 6 people, unless anyone else has anything else to add. Okay. It is recommended that the committee resolves to endorse the proposed appointment of Bill Donnelly, Jane Clark, Belinda Knight, John Smith, Dean Spears and Tim Stokes as independent persons for the shadow period until the 31st of March 2027. Is that agreed? And Councillor Austin's abstaining. Councillor Kang?
Are we not excluding one?
Yes, I've excluded one.
Okay, you have. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry. Read all.
So, with the exception of one abstention, is that agreed? And, oh, okay. I think we'll just do a vote then. We'll do a show of hands. Okay. Who is in agreement with the recommendation that I just read out?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, Chair.
Yeah, that's 11. And who's against?
None. Oh, 1, sorry. Chair.
1 against. And abstentions?
1, 2, 3.
3 abstentions. So that recommendation is passed. Right, thank you, committee. We are on to the last 2 agenda items. So,
So, is it the second recommendation as well? Yeah, that's the first one, that's the second one.
apologies, committee, back to that. There's a second recommendation in your agenda, and it's that an allowance of £1,159 per annum pro rata, as detailed in the Shadow Authority's Members Allowance Scheme, be paid to each independent persons, together with expenses for travel, where such costs are incurred in connection with their duties. Is that agreed? Any objections? No? Okay, that recommendation is agreed.
Agreed unanimously.
Unanimously? Thank you. Thank you. On to item number 11, schedule of meetings for the remainder of the shadow period. This item is for the committee to consider proposed options to agree a proposal for future committee dates during the shadow period to put forward to the Shadow Authority at its meeting on the 30th of July 2026. Monitoring Officer.
Thank you, Chair. A report was taken to the West Surrey Joint Committee before the Shadow Authority was established on the schedule of meetings for the year, and it was hoped that they would be comfortable with a schedule to recommend to the inaugural council. There was a significant amount of debate and discussion at the Joint Committee level, and it is apparent that there are some quite strong views about this. The Joint Committee did come to a conclusion and had a schedule to recommend to the inaugural meeting of the Shadow Authority, and the decision at the Shadow Authority was that they would approve it up until the end of July with one small amendment to the start time of the Shadow Council meeting on the 30th of July, which is now to be 7 p.m. And the Shadow Authority asked for this matter to be considered by the Standards Committee and for them to bring a recommendation back to them on the 30th of July. So at the moment, we have a lack of certainty of committee dates and times and venues beyond the 30th of July. That's difficult because there's obviously a lead-in time for arrangements for committees. So I am hoping that today that we can make some progress on this matter. Just a couple of points to update you on since the report was published is that the leader has made a decision that all meetings of the executive will commence at 10 o'clock in the morning. That, as we spoke about earlier, is within the remit of the leader to make arrangements for his meetings, and that suited his executive better. So there is no proposed change to the dates, venues or start times for the executive meetings. Also, just to advise you on the draft schedule that you have, is that there has been a change of time and change of venue of the Employment Committee meeting on the 16th of July, which is now going to start their meeting at 7 p.m. and have it held at Waverley Borough Council's offices. That's just for that meeting alone. And also to provide the committee with advance notice that arrangements are likely to be made for an extraordinary meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee to be called at some point between the 16th and 20th of July, but I don't have a firm date, time or venue for that meeting at the moment. So there is a little bit of updating. I would say the implementation team have carried out an equalities impact assessment, light touch in this report. What I would suggest you focus on is that very, very shortly we are going to be starting the substantive work for the schedule of meetings for post-vesting day. And there has to be a pragmatic view in terms of our limited resources as to where we focus those resources. So there will be a fuller, more detailed equality impact assessment for planning the schedule for next year post-vesting day, and that will come through this committee for consideration. I think it might be scheduled for November at the moment. So that work's already starting. So this is a light touch equalities impact assessment, but it does highlight some of the equalities issues that you should consider when considering start times and venues, including working people, caring responsibilities, disabilities, all of the equalities characteristics that need to be considered. But I think it is a difficult balancing exercise for this committee to determine which of those sort of is the priority in terms of your start time of meetings, because obviously a 2 o'clock time does suit some people and evening time suits others. I would also say that please be mindful during the shadow period that there are 6 existing schedules of meetings from the predecessor councils, which is why some of these recommendations have been made on these particular dates. There is a view that whilst both are very important, your roles in all of your local authorities, and we have many people who are multi-hatters, up to 4 quadruple hatters, we have some, but those predecessor councils do remain responsible for service delivery during this shadow period, and we didn't want to put any councillors in a position where they couldn't attend meetings at their predecessor council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can I just clarify one thing? I think you've already said it repeatedly, that chairs of committees and the chair of the council have the discretion to move the times during the day of the start times of meetings, so they could do it individually after consultation or something with their committee?
Yes, so absolutely. So the chair of a committee has the authority to make amendments to the venue, date or time in consultation with, I believe it's the leader and the monitoring officer, provided that the summons hasn't been published.
Okay.
So if it's after the summons have been published, which is 5 clear working days before the meeting, then it has to be an exceptional circumstance or some urgency, because obviously the public have been told the details of that meeting. But other than that, yes, there is some discretion.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. We might bear that in mind. There's going to be a lot of people wanting to talk on this. Can you look at the 3 options that we've been given? I'm not sure what page that's on the main document. It would just be helpful if you gave an indication of which of 76, I'm told, page 76. Yeah. I guess it would be helpful if you could just make it clear which of these options you're promoting as well. Now, I know there's going to be lots of people who want to talk, so we'll start with Councillor Shortwoods.
Thank you. It is the devil's own job to try and be fair to everybody. One thing that I wanted to discuss was the impact on the officers who were coming from all over everywhere. And some of these meetings do finish quite late. And if we're asking, I mean, does it have an impact on overtime? I think there was a mention about security, using offices in different times. I don't think there's going to be a perfect solution, but I would like, in the spirit of working well with the officers, to bear in mind the impact on them for any of the times, and safety for people getting home at any time, as well as the caring. I realise we want a mixed set of talents on the council, and that means we have to try and accommodate people who have working obligations as well.
Yeah, thank you. Do you want to reply to that, or will we move on and gather some more? Okay, Councillor Mullins.
Thank you, Chair. For full council, is it the case that employers are required to release members to attend meetings because it's subject to a summons? And is that not the case? Okay, thank you.
So we use the word summons for the agenda publication, not the same as a court summons, so there isn't a sort of a requirement for an officer to attend. In terms of staffing arrangements, there is a provision in the structural changes order that officers of the sovereign councils must be released to support the unitary council in its shadow period. Which particular officer is down to the head of paid services to agree who would attend to present an item at committee, for example. Normally the report author or their relevant director, but that's an internal sort of decision for the head of paid service.
Thank you. Councillor Nurmokang. Oh, sorry, someone else first? Oh, Councillor Morales, go ahead.
Thank you. I was looking at your impact assessment and I had a few comments. One, age. Older people may be less keen to attend evening meetings because apparently younger people work. Given that the retirement age is now 67 and when some of us get to 67 it'll probably be 70 by then, I can't imagine we've got that many councillors who will not be working at some level, and so the age should probably not say that only the young people work, because I'm sure there's a significant number of councillors who don't consider themselves amazingly young who are working daytimes, and those people who work the type of jobs like myself which are outdoors and restricted to daylight hours, then evenings are much easier. Normally, I'm a gardener, I can't go and work in the evenings. Pregnancy and maternity, you've suggested that pregnant women might be reluctant to attend meetings at night due to concerns of safety. I have a daughter who's incredibly pregnant at the moment, and she works until 9:30 or 10 every night as part of her job. But more to the point, it's incredibly hot in the daytime, and she's struggling. She's 2 jobs because mortgages are expensive. She's struggling on the daytime working, whereas the evening is slightly cooler. And so it might be that you could consider things like that, which although we might end up in a council chamber with air conditioning, So that wouldn't have an impact, but certainly the impact of heat during the daytime, if we carry on having very, very hot summers like this, should probably be more of a concern than the idea that dark is scary, because dark I don't think is scary to the majority of people. Religion and belief, where it says there's a potential for Muslim councillors to be impacted by meetings taking place during Ramadan. Ramadan changes from one end of the year to the other. It changes based on the cycles of the moon. And during the winter months, you've got to fit your 5 prayer cycles within a very, very short period between sunset and sunrise and sunset. So their 5 prayers are really squashed together, and it's going to be difficult to get in the daytime. And the evening, you've got past your break fast, and so it's not a problem at all because it's dark and you've got past your evening sunset prayer time. Whereas in the summer months, the sunset prayer time is much later, but the gaps between the 5 prayer times are much, much wider spread. And so the impact of daytime or evening meetings probably means that the evening meetings would be slightly easier because they're either after the end of the Ramadan breaking fast, or they are in the daytime where the prayers are much, much greater, more spread out. But we have a significant number of Muslim councillors on working council, and they sit with a small supply of water and dates on the table so that they can have a nibble during the meeting when they hit the break fast if it's during a meeting. And the other one on sex, it says, there may be reluctance for women and girls to want to attend evening meetings due to personal safety. And I thought, why are we saying that women are more scared than men? We've actually gone out and campaigned with all sorts of different situations, daytime, evenings. I think that councillors, I think many women would be quite upset and insulted to consider that because they're women, they should be more scared in the evening than they are in the daytime. And I don't think in terms of the equality impact assessment you should say that. If there was a genuine reason that women couldn't get out in the evenings or in the daytimes, that would be valid. But to suggest that women are more scared of the dark than men are, I know men that are scared of the dark. I did wonder whether there were other things, such as women have more caring responsibilities, and both childcare and adult care of elderly relatives might potentially be easier in the evenings than the daytimes, or might be vice versa, because there is lots of statistical evidence to say that women care for both children and the elderly more than men do. But I don't think concern about whether or not it's dark is a valid thing to put into an impact assessment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nomor Kang.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to recap that those candidates who opted to stand in the elections on the 7th of May this year had some idea that these meetings, particularly like Surrey County Council, have them at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So that's something that was known by candidates beforehand. And those who do work, I mean, employers do have a discretion and tend to be quite flexible, and you have to book leave. So anyone who does, hopefully employers will, I mean, you have there's a civic duty for employers to give you leave. And I won't talk about childcare, but I do believe that childcare is probably easily available in the daytime. But more pointedly, the point I wanted was when hybrid meetings would possibly take place. Are we moving towards hybrid meetings?
On the point on hybrid meetings, I think that's going through legislation at some point. Can you update us on that, Monitoring Officer?
Not very specifically, I'm afraid, but through you, Chair, the government has said that they wish to introduce hybrid meetings, and that it'll be as soon as the parliamentary timetable allows that legislation will come forwards. But I can't really give a view as to when that might be.
Thank you. Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Chair. Although I'm in agreement with most of the comments that have been made here, I just want to make everyone aware that shift workers like myself unfortunately sometimes can't get people to take over our shifts. So it's very difficult for those of us with shifts that we have to work and finding people to replace us in those. Although I'm lucky, I probably will be able to, but there might be others that aren't. So just to bear that in mind. Thank you.
Yeah, I feel that pain as well. Councillor Lewis is next.
Thank you, Chair. I would want to echo some support for Councillor Kang there. I worked and spoke with some of the officers at Runnymede, referenced the candidate pack for new councillors, and it was open when their meetings were. You know, as I'm a triple hatter, so I'm well aware that my borough meetings are at night and my county meetings are in the daytime. Also, as a councillor, you should be making your employee aware that you're going for a candidate, because you might get a summons and you might actually have to drop things during the daytime if an issue happens. Flooding is an example, COVID was another, and you might need to go in there and support your residents. So your employer must always be aware that you're a councillor. And yes, you're right, they sometimes do give flexibility if you've got daytime meetings, as mine one does. I fully get that the timings of meetings are going to be quite a controversial one. If you look at other councils that have done this over the years, especially Unitary, a lot of them do mix between daytime and evening based on complexities of meetings, timings of meetings, and number of attendees. I think one of the comments that I've looked when I've looked at this from other councils, I think the term that comes up quite regularly is the term dog tired. You know, if you want councillors to be engaged, correctly, having late time meetings are not going to work, because if they've done a full-time day job, spent probably an hour getting there, because in Surrey we're not a small location, in East West Surrey we're not spread out in a small location like we are as a borough. You know, you want to have meetings in as close to daytime as possible. But I fully get that has an impact on work, day, family life. Yeah, but then again, we should be aware of that when we come into this and be councillors. And I do regret there's going to be a blend, and it's not going to fix everybody's situation. But that's where we are. I do think we have missed in terms of the criteria when we look at this. Yeah, can we please look at the distance of travelling? Yeah, because I don't see that listed in it. That's quite key. I know certainly after the last meeting, some councillors had an hour, 2 hour drive back. You know, if you're having a meeting at 7 o'clock and you're at 6, that's still in the rush hour. You could be taking an hour and a half to get to a meeting. You're not going to be really in a good state when you get there. You know, and how is that going to be great for our residents? It's not, because you're not going to be engaged and be exhausted, etc. And we want councillors to be engaged. Yeah, and it's the same about having late night meetings. Yeah, we talk about safety. And it's not just safety when leaving the council chamber, but it's also on travelling late on roads, certainly in the winter months. And we need to be mindful of that, especially when we talk about the long meetings such as planning, you know, full council. Those ones are the ones that should be in the daytime, in my opinion. As a triple hatter, I've got experience of both. But there are others that maybe are smaller length times that you could accommodate them. Yeah, and then as political parties can then work out who's best to sit on those groups based on their work-life balance. And that might be the way that we have to look at it on a party basis. But again, there is no win. But I am just concerned that when councillors were put their name forward as candidates, we should all have been aware. Everyone would have done the due diligence, yeah? And there's a lot of double hatters in around this room, and there's a few triple hatters around this room, so we're already used to it. But to say they're not coming into this with open eyes what time the meetings were, I don't think is not giving us the full it needs. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor Lewis. So I agree with a lot of what you said there. Would you say you're moving more towards option 2, which is a mixture of start times for meetings? Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. 2 at this current time for this next till vesting day, but then we need to look at it in a more pragmatic point of view based on the volume of meetings that you guys are going to have to schedule. But that happens to Borough as well. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, we've already heard there's a limitation on the capacity for changing meeting times. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Chair. I think there's a sort of 3 main issues I want to sort of cover on. Overarching, I don't really understand on full council why we're trying to reinvent the wheel just for the interim period. The officers have already done the work to make the meetings at 2 p.m. That works. Why are we changing it? And the only conclusion I do reach is that people have been elected that maybe didn't expect to be elected, or they didn't go into it with their eyes open. Because even if you know, I knew exactly what the commitment was going to be I'm a district and borough councillor. I work with county councillors. I know what that work commitment is. In the last in the last full council, we had regard to the IRP report. That said, in the shadow period, the work period for a backbencher was expected to be 14 hours, and for the full council period for a backbencher, 24 hours. Now, that cannot be managed on evenings alone, and that again is just an indication. We all came into this. It is in sometimes it's a full-time job, and I'm worried actually if people are thinking that they'll be able to manage it at just the odd 7 p.m. meeting. No, that is not what the commitment is going to be. Second of all, so impact on officers. I am worried about this. There is a very good reason why a lot of the Surrey Cabinet meetings are in the daytime. It is to support officers and ensure that they can do their business in the daytime working hours. And again, I think there are two things we've not really touched on properly yet, and the report is very good actually, but it doesn't touch on, is the impact on decision making. Tired councillors, in evenings, I've seen it time and time again, they get to the point they just want to be out of there. They make poor quality decisions, and I must say it, in my time as a councillor, I have seen the politicisation of agenda items being ordered in such an order that the really important things start being debated at 9:30, 10 at night. I find that really offensive, actually, and I've seen it happen. And I think we should all rally against that, frankly. We all need to be on our ball, on the game, making decisions in the best interests of our residents. I just want to feedback some of the other feedback I've had from my council group. There is significant concern about evening meetings, given the huge geography of West Surrey. A number of us have touched on that. Childcare, even if you can file the childcare, you're still away from your family. And we, as councillors, already make big sacrifices being away from our... why are we suggesting we should make more? So fundamentally, we've not done the research. We're just sort of being asked to make a decision on the hoof. I think what we should do on full council, especially, is just stick to what we knew we were going into, effectively, at the beginning of this process, which is 2 p.m. meetings. It's already been identified that individual committee chairs can have the right to change those meeting times themselves. So that, to me, would promote option 1, I think. And I would just finally say, let's do the homework. Let's get this proper consultation done. Let's do that. I agree with Susan Sale. We should spend the time on that. Work out what we're going to do that's best for our new council on the 1st of April 2027. And let's get back in this chamber and have the battle about that. That's the big discussion that we should be having. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's Councillor O'Brien next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think for myself personally, the committee timings, it's nonsense. It doesn't really matter. There's 15 people to worry about. My main concern would be the full council meetings. When you've got the 90 people logistics-wise, I'd suggest having like a daylight savings hours timing where you do like a spring, summer, autumn, winter timetable, 10 a.m., 2 p.m., 7 p.m. Simply because you don't want to be driving home 7 p.m. in December, January in cold weather, vice versa. You don't want to be doing that. So you wouldn't mind doing that in the summer months, June, July, August, that kind of thing. But yeah, that was my 2 pence worth.
Yeah, good point. Next is Councillor Hulley.
Thank you, Chair. I'm leaning towards supporting option 1, which is a 2 p.m. start time across the board. For me, the underlying principle is one of consistency in support of councillors. They can set their diaries based on a time that goes into the diary for consecutive future meetings. Consistency for officers, we've heard that already, that we need to be mindful of their time commitments, and I think setting meetings during the daytime and ideally at 2 p.m. supports our officers, but also consistency for members of the public and people who are going to be bringing from outside of this council into committee meetings, sometimes as witnesses, consistency for them too. And for all of those reasons, I think a 2 p.m. start time for these meetings makes the most sense. It is disappointing that the shadow executive will be meeting at 10 a.m. rather than 2. So essentially, from my perspective, but it's a matter for the leader, option 1, 2 p.m. start times for all meetings other than the executive. Thank you.
Thank you, that was really clear. Councillor Bateson.
Thank you, Chair. I think really we're at a bit of a crossroads because we're looking at from now until vesting day, but the real elephant in the room is where is our long-term home going to be? And I think most people, in fairness, if you look at the geography and the layout of the West Surrey area, probably an ultimate office building somewhere in Woking is about fair to everybody. I think it's pretty well equidistant for everybody. So that can then be viewed on that basis, that people who have to travel long distances, I mean, for anybody here, for example, who has to go to the audit committee, they've got to drive to Godalming from here. And for those councillors today, probably my colleague on the right, Councillor Austin, has had to drive for this meeting to Spelthorne, and she probably would tell you it's taken upwards of an hour. So I think we've got to look at it from the period up until vesting day, and then we hopefully will get some idea about where our permanent home is going to be. Then maybe we can have a look at it then. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you put your finger on the main point there, that we've got this schedule, but it's only until the end of March, and it's what happens after that is going to be really important. And hopefully what happens after that, which is going to be a decision for this committee, or to recommend, will be conducted with best practice, so consulting all 90 councillors and all the officers who are affected as well, which obviously couldn't take place for this. I'm just going to go round the list of people that I've got. Councillor Shaw.
Thank you. I think when people started talking, they recognised that it's very difficult and we won't have everybody agreeing at the same time. And I think we have to accept that. But the later speakers were very adamant that they wanted to set a specific time. I, like many, work full time. I'm lucky enough that I can come to this meeting in the afternoon, but I would prefer evenings. But I know that that doesn't suit everybody. So we've all got to be flexible and not say, oh, I'm only going to do 2 p.m. That's not fair. Everybody has got their own circumstances, and I just plead with people to be flexible and reasonable.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Mullins, you're next.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just noticed that there's a lot of talk of driving and roads and no mention of trains. I try and attend council meetings by train. I came by train this morning, it was only from Egham. But I think, we must consider those alternatives, thank you, in how we speak. Thank you.
Thank you. No, very good point. Councillor Austin.
Thank you. I mean, it does feel like, I may be wrong, it feels like the majority of us seem to be leaning towards option 1, with committees having their own powers to change the meeting dates anyway. I was just going to suggest we put forward a recommendation following Councillor Bateson's comments to the executive, that the executive focus on identifying a new HQ ASAP, so that we when we are looking at this consultation, when I think it's on the work programme for later in the year, that we come armed with that information. Maybe we could formulate some wording around that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Hopefully it's possible, yeah. Next is Councillor Morales and then Councillor Lewis.
In terms of attendance in meetings by train, Woking's incredibly well connected. Actually, we didn't think Staines was incredibly well connected to Woking. In terms of officer commitment, we have already got huge numbers of officers in the districts and boroughs who are doing evening meetings, as the vast majority of meetings with members. And so the type of contracts and the type of staff who've taken those jobs are ones who have already put into their schedule, let's do evening meetings. I know that within our Woking Borough Council, we have officers who have family commitments. They work regularly on the Member Services Department in the evening meetings because during the daytime they have young children. And so that will be a range of different officers' preferences because we will be taking on TUPEing a number of people from both district and boroughs and from county, and so that does need to be taken into account. But I do agree, I personally will be supporting option 2. I think having a range of meetings is good. What is important is that it's in everybody's diary, so everybody who has to fit it into their lives knows whether or not they can attend that particular meeting at that time. And things like the Audit and Governance Committee, the Standards Committee meetings, we've got substitutes who are able to cover, if necessary. There is the option within the Constitution to substitute. And so if the timing of a particular meeting doesn't fit, hopefully different groups will be able to find substitutes to cover it. I do think that we have got, within our body of 90 councillors, there are people who work daytime jobs and struggle to get time off. I note that all of these things are aimed to be not in term time, and yet we have at least one councillor who's a teacher, and he struggles to get any time during the daytime during term time, but in the holidays he's got plenty of free time. And so we're all different, and I think having option 2 gives the flexibility that will be needed going forwards, and I agree we should very much ask that a decision on the future place of a council needs to take into account connections by bus and train very much, and the sooner we have that commitment and decision, the better for all of us. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to call Councillor Lewis next, and then I'm going to try and sum up what I've heard, and then Councillor Bobara, and then I'll sum up what I've heard in favour and against any change. Thank you, Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Austin probably beats my words, but it was actually on the back of Councillor Bateson that I wanted to speak in regard to actually the location. Actually, I think it's actually quite key, the location that we choose, and Councillor Mullins and Rice also spoke about the train interconnectivity within West Surrey. I think that's key. We actually have an opportunity, you know, if we set that location of where we tend to live in West Surrey as our base from next April, by December this year, we have an opportunity to test that location in the January, February, March time. So there's an argument to say that you could then say move as many meetings as possible to that location and actually see how it works. Yeah, if we did that, we could test it, and that way we could iron out any kinks, and actually it would actually give us data that will go into our final report about the timings, because we would have that without doing that. And I think that we have an opportunity to do that because it's been brought up. So why don't we test it? So just one suggestion there, Chair.
Yeah, I think we're seeing that as quite a key part of it. Could the monitoring officer update us on what the current situation is for an HQ of the council?
Yes, as far as I'm able to. So I was just having a quick look to see when this matter will come back for consideration by this committee, because that's really when you need to have some information. Just bear with me 1 second. It's due to come back in November, so early November. On the work programme at the moment, there will be a schedule of meetings for post-vesting day coming to the Standards Committee. So as far as I know, there is work going on the potential location. There is one of the work streams of the implementation plan is tasked with looking at viability. I don't know the date that they will be bringing forward proposals, but it should go to the executive in the first instance. But this committee could have make a resolution to request from the senior responsible officer of the implementation team that he provides an update for your next meeting, which might be helpful.
Yeah, would everyone be happy with that? Yeah, thank you. Thank you, that's helpful. Councillor Bopara.
Hi, thank you. I think it's unfair for everyone to say that this is, well, some people to say that this is what you've signed up for. You should have known the times when you joined to be a councillor. We signed up for a fresh start, and we signed up to actually look at how we can make different things more accessible for all of our councillors. So I do think it needs to still be taken into consideration, the later meetings. because actually that would make it more attractive to, you know, more people who want to join the council, want to be councillors in the future. Otherwise, if they know that they're working full-time jobs, yeah, and they want to be on committee meetings, there are a lot of employers that will not be happy with that. I currently struggle to actually get time off for, you know, the committee meetings and actually the full council. So I think it would be more attractive and it would actually be more inclusive to young people in the future. So I don't think it's fair to just write it off and do the same business as usual, because that's not what we signed up for. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Councillor Mullins?
Thank you, Chair. At the moment, I think we have one meeting planned to be at 7 p.m. And it was suggested that that would give us an idea of what it's like to meet at 7 p.m. I think one meeting in the summer isn't enough. I think, you know, maybe one in the winter, just for people to, you know, see the implications of it. You know, maybe, you know, Surrey people who've never been to evening meetings. So I would prefer to go for option 2. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think there's actually 2 meetings because not just the full council on the 30th, but also the employment committee was moved from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. and unfortunately it overlaps with a borough committee that I'm the vice chair of as well. So you can't please everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I get back?
Please come back.
Yeah. I am talking about full council because that's the one that matters. Oh, well, that's the most. Yeah. Whatever.
Okay. So okay, Councillor Austin.
Sorry, I was just going to suggest, as it seems that the full council is, as we all saying, the key one. Perhaps we could take a vote on our preference for 2 p.m. or 7 p.m. between us, and then that would flow into whatever option we're going to be proposing. Because, you know, at the moment, it does seem that whether it's 2 p.m. or 7 p.m. is the key question that will inform which option we want to go for. Thank you.
Okay, so I think the suggestion there is that we go for one of the option 1 or 2, but we also perhaps have commentary alongside it, because this is a recommendation to the shadow authority, isn't it? So we could go for one of these 2 options, but also say, but we prefer a certain committee or the full council to meet at a certain time as well. Does the committee feel that's something we could do? I'll have to take a couple more then. Councillor Sarby-Kang.
Sorry, just a quick question. Are these meetings, are we advised on these meetings a year in advance, aren't we? Do we get a timetable about every meeting, don't we?
It's not a full year in advance, depending on the date. So we would propose to bring next year's schedule, which will start in May next year, to you in November this year, and then for it to go to council probably in January time. It may be just before Christmas, but more likely January, and you would then have the schedule from May 27 to April 28.
Just to follow on that, so any meetings, can you just clarify for everybody, how much in advance notice are you given that you've got these meetings coming up?
Anything between 5 months and a year and 5 months.
That gives you ample time to adjust your lifestyle and make arrangements, is that right? Am I right in thinking that? Take time off work, etc.?
Well, that's why we don't leave it to the last meeting just before vesting day. We would try to bring it by January so that everybody has at least 4 months' notice of the meetings from May and can make suitable arrangements.
So if anybody's got a problem, they can talk to their leader then, the group leader, yeah? Am I right?
Yep, absolutely. Just before it comes to Councillor Morales, sorry, did you want to?
Yeah.
Please do, yeah.
I think we've got options here. We've got option 1, which is a fixed option, and option 2 is a variable option. It's got lots of different choices. So I don't think by adding a recommendation against whichever one we select is right, because you're then if we choose option 2, you're then restricting it, and if you choose option 1, well, you've already made your decision.
Yeah.
So I would just say vote on the options as they are.
Yeah, I mean, indeed, option 2 says shadow authority meetings to take place at 2 p.m. or 7 p.m. Can I just sum up what the committee have said so far today? I've looked at the contributions in favour of changing from the existing schedule and against. So this is obviously just for the shadow authority until the end of March. The committee have said that, or some people have said that we need to have a mix of start times to have a variety of people on the council. There's been a particular emphasis on working people, people who work full-time during the day. On weekdays, find it difficult to attend 2 p.m. meetings. It was also said in favour of evening meetings that officers in the boroughs and districts are already used to attending evening meetings, as are members in the boroughs and districts. It was, although some people said that candidates knew that they would be attending daytime meetings, it was also said that candidates were not really aware of that because it was going to be a fresh start and a combination of boroughs and districts and county times. And it would be more inclusive to young people to be able to have meetings in the evening. And we also heard that one 7 p.m. meeting in the whole summer is not enough. Now, against any change, so in favour of the status quo, we heard about the difficulties for officers to attend evening meetings, although there was a point that was also made that some officers are used to that already, about the safety of finishing meetings at 10 p.m, especially in the winter, about the undesirability of trying to reinvent the wheel when we've already got a schedule of meetings and people will have them in their diaries already up until the end of March, about the impact on decision making if we go on, especially in the summer, till 10 p.m. The point was made that candidates knew, but then maybe not all candidates were expecting that, and some were expecting borough council time meetings, especially after vesting day. The distance that people would have to travel to get to evening meetings in the rush hour and then back home by midnight. The difficulty of childcare in the evenings. We've heard it's more difficult to get childcare then. Also, chairs can change meetings already, which could be done for seasonal reasons, or it could be done just consulting members of the committee. And if all 15 members really prefer evening meetings, then chairs can already do that, and some have already done so. There is limited capacity for officers to change meetings because of the difficulty of fitting in with boroughs and districts. And consistency, well, we've already got a schedule and we have it in our diaries. Does anyone want to add anything to the pros and cons? Councillor Austin.
Sorry, my point about politicisation of agendas was not on there. A concern as an against evening meetings, as in, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, evening meetings more likely to be politicised.
Well, more that I have experience of important agenda items being put late at night, and that's something that makes me strongly against evening meetings, for that reason, almost alone, actually.
Thank you. Councillor Morales.
Just in terms of the travel time, getting back from Guildford, I only live 7 miles away. It took me over an hour to get home because of masses of roadworks, and I'm sure going home in the evenings would be much, much easier. But I did like the suggestion from Councillor O'Brien that maybe times would be taken into account based on the seasons, and I do see the point that during the winter we might potentially get frost one day if the global warming doesn't get any worse, and in the evenings there is a greater chance of frost, and so daytimes in the evenings are potentially better in the winter. But I definitely think that the option 2 gives us the flexibility, and I also don't think it's appropriate for us as a committee to take a sentence forward as a recommendation that we will have them at set time or other before we've tried the evening meeting, which is our next full council meeting. I think at that point we'll all know, and 90 councillors will all make their views known through their group leaders, I'm sure, and they can come back and potentially change it. So option 2 does give us the flexibility to have the occasional extra evening meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And talking about the 90 councillors, whatever we decide today is just a recommendation to the full council, so there could well be people speaking and amending on that as well. Councillor Holly first and then Councillor Kang.
Thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, just to return the committee to the report, and if you look on page 73, table 1, there's a summary of start times availability compared with sovereign council meeting schedules, and the only column where the draft or the author of the report suggests works for all the committees, i.e. what is possible is a 2 p.m. start time. Every other suggested meeting is for some reason not possible as set out in the table. So for consistency purposes, the author of this report has in effect recommended 2 p.m. starts for meetings. Just to put that on the record. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really important. But that's if every committee and the Shadow Authority meet at the same time, perhaps they don't need to. Perhaps the Shadow Authority can meet at one time, the Executive can meet at another time, and so on. But I get the point about consistency. Absolutely, it is important. Councillor Kang.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, from what I'm hearing, I mean, we can't put everything in stone. We have to be flexible. And sometimes suits one person, doesn't suit. But we have to accommodate everybody. And that's the principle, really. And I agree with my previous councillors that it can be difficult to take, time off work. Or for other matters, so I would be going for option 2, and I don't think we can put a time where it's 2 o'clock or 7 from a. So I would recommendation 2 with the discretion of the chair.
Yeah, and hopefully a chair that consults the whole committee. Councillor Austin.
Yeah, I think that comes to the crux of it. For full council, consulting with all 90 councillors is, and we're representing that view. My issue with option 2, right, is that it's 2 p.m. or 7 p.m. So as a committee, we're not actually even recommending anything. And I think actually we should be helpful, and we should be saying, because what I'm hearing in the room is that there are balanced views, but it seems to me that the majority are saying they probably prefer a 2 p.m. Now, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is something. That's what my issue with option 2. So option 1, I think, is probably preferable, given that chairs can change committee times at their own discretion anyway. Option 2 doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I take that point. I guess on option 2, if you're saying all the meetings should take place at 2 p.m, then the chairs could have them all at 2 p.m. In option 2 as well, apart from the executive. Right, do we have any more? I'm trying to work out how we're going to take a vote on this, so any suggestions would be welcome as well. Councillor Mullins.
Yes, I think I would just disagree with Councillor Austin. I think there are quite a few people here who would like some evening meetings, maybe because we're used to it, and it works for us. And I realise that it's different because we have to travel further, but I think there are people who want that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bateson.
I think the best way you can do the vote is to offer up option 1, those for and against, option 2, those for and against, and the greater vote of either option is the winner.
Okay, so I think we all agree that it should be either option 1 or option 2. So I guess I'm looking for somebody to propose one of the options, and if it falls, then we'll go with the other one.
Can I propose not option 2?
Okay, Councillor Marla has proposed option 2.
I'm happy to propose option 1.
Okay, so I think we need a seconder from... We have to do one at a time. So we need a seconder for option 2.
I second option 2.
Okay, Councillor Nimmo Kang, second option 2. Looking for a show of hands?
Yeah, all those in favour.
Okay, all those in favour of option 2? Eleven.
11.
That's 11. All those against option 2?
1, 2, 3, 4.
And any abstentions? I don't think there can be. Okay, thank you all for that debate. That was really interesting. I
Sorry,
into it
could I
with an
ask
open
that
mind.
we consider a recommendation, first of all, what Susan Sale has said, and secondly...
About the headquarters.
About the headquarters, and secondly, that we have the knowledge, ideally, of the headquarters by the time the report comes back to us in November. I think that's the key issue. Yeah.
I'm happy to second that, Chair.
I mean, I think we had kind of agreed that already. Does anybody dissent from that? No, sorry, Monetary Officer.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just suggest, if you're going with option 2, whether you want to just add the wording at the end, to be determined by the Chair in consultation with the committee, just for clarity, because on some of them you are recommending to the Shadow Authority that there is still a choice over the start time, which lacks a bit of certainty as to who makes that. So for 11.2.2, Employment Committee and Overview and Scrutiny Committee meetings to take place at either 10 a.m. or 2 p.m. to be determined by the Chair of the committee in consultation with the committee members. And the
Does
same
everyone
with
agree with that?
11.2.3.
Yeah.
And 11.2.5, you are still leaving it that the Shadow Authority meetings can take place at 2 or 7, so you're failing to make a clear recommendation to the Shadow Authority. Is that to be determined by the Chair of the Shadow Authority? Or?
Yeah, I would assume the Chair of the Shadow Authority. Sorry, Councillor Austin, do you want to?
Yeah, sorry, I just thought as a committee, that's the key issue, and we've kind of sidestepped it. I personally, the Chair of the Shadow Authority, is, you know, that's why we're consulting. We should give that Chair a steer of what we think, you know, from this committee. That's the whole point of what we're doing. So I think we should say, you know, either by vote or by something, whether we would prefer 7 or 2. It's, you know, it's in their absolute power, but, you know, that's what I think we should do.
Okay, so just to check with the Monitoring Officer, we could have option 2 with the modification about chairs consulting with their committees, but for the Shadow Authority, can we take a vote of this committee to give a clearer steer on that? Would that be appropriate?
Yes, absolutely. And it is only a recommendation to the Shadow Council, so they can come to a different conclusion. But I think it would be helpful to them to have a schedule for the rest of the shadow period of exactly the dates, venues and times that you are recommending, albeit that you're going to caveat those committee meetings with giving an option.
Okay. Yeah.
I feel that I could make a judgment on the Standards Committee and full council, but I couldn't make a decision on the Employment Committee, for example, and I think there's, you know, different people have views about which committee. So that's why, I mean, I know I can abstain, but I don't feel it's right for people who are not on the Employment Committee to make a recommendation about the Employment Committee. I think that needs to be done by the Employment Committee.
Chair, can I make an alternative suggestion then, that it's 11.2.5, your recommendation could be that Shadow Authority meetings take place at either 2 p.m. or 7 p.m. to be determined by way of majority vote of the Council at their meeting on the 30th of July. Then you are putting it into, it's just that without something, it's unclear who's going to make that decision at the moment.
Okay, and it would be added to the agenda of that meeting.
I think that would work because everybody will be at that meeting, or not just the people here, understand? And we shouldn't be, like you said, we shouldn't be making the decision on certain, we're not on planning. Some people are not on other committees, so they probably have different views, so.
Okay, Councillor Morales.
We do have the January meeting of the full council, which currently is listed as between 10 and 3, which presumably I had assumed would be the really, really busy one because it's getting very close to vesting day. And we've got our Shadow Authority meetings taking place at either 2 p.m. or 7 p.m. And if we are going to change them on bulk and have a full vote for the same time all the way through, then it might be that that particular meeting is not going to fit in between 7 and 10, and it may mean that we need to have another extra meeting added, and the majority of councillors might prefer to have just that one meeting between 10 and 7, between 10 and 3 as it is in the diary, or between 2 and maybe 10 o'clock at night, because it's going to be a very, very long meeting. And I would like to suggest that we recommend that the leader and executive put forward a range of times for the shadow authority meetings, depending, or the same as they are in the calendar at the moment maybe, or other times, and then that can be voted on at the full council. Because if we say we're just going to say the same all the way through, then are we going to have to add an extra meeting for that January one, is the main question.
Okay, so I think timings of meetings are non-executive functions, so it wouldn't be appropriate for the leader and the executive to do it, but they would be for the chair of the council. Yeah, so the point about the long meeting for the budget, obviously that couldn't take place at 7 p.m, but we leave it to the shadow authority to organise that.
I think, Chair, what I'm hearing is that members want to make a resolution that we go for option 2, and therefore that we will produce a schedule of meetings. There's been no changes to the venue and no changes to the date, other than the 1 or 2 updates I gave you at the beginning. So same date, same venue, with these start times allowing the chair to determine in consultation with the committee, and with the shadow authority meeting to take place at either 2 or 7, to be determined by majority vote of the council meeting. And if that council meeting wanted to take a different vote for their January meeting, if it's particularly busy, they could have a different start time, and they have the power through the chair to arrange extraordinary meetings if they felt there was too much business nearer the time when we see what a draft agenda looks like. So I think that does provide some certainty and clarity, and I hope addresses what members are trying to agree. And just on Councillor Austin's point, if I could come back on that, I was going to suggest you might want an additional resolution to that the Standards Committee request from the Senior Responsible Officer of the implementation team to bring forward an update report to the Standards Committee on the likely officers and venues to the September meeting of the Standards Committee, which would allow you a little bit of wriggle room because you're considering it in November and there is a meeting in October. If that works.
Excellent, yeah, thank you. I think we already agreed that resolution, that last one?
I think you have, and just if the committee are happy to add on that wording about the chair.
Yeah, about the chair's consulting for the 3 committees that have got variable times, and for the shadow authority to be decided by a majority vote of the full shadow authority on the 30th of July. Right, does everybody understand, and is everyone in agreement?
Agree.
Excellent, excellent, thank you. Thank you very much for all of that. I came into this with an open mind, and I've been convinced. I think that, oh no, we've got another.
Sorry, there's another recommendation.
We've got another couple, I've got them here, yeah. So we have agreed, I think we've agreed already the next steps, agree the next steps for proposing and agreeing future meeting dates from the 1st of April, post-vesting day 2027, as set out in paragraphs 4.1 and 4.2. Can you cast your minds back to 4.1 and 4.2? This is for post-vesting day. Everything we've been talking about so far has been before vesting day. I'm not sure. Do you have the page number for?
I think it should be 5.
Okay.
I think, Chair, maybe paragraphs 6.4 and 6.5, where it sets out that there will be further reports brought to you for post-vesting day proposals and the detailed research that's going to happen before that.
Okay. Okay, so I guess we are recommending that we agree that 6.4 and 6.5, but basically there's going to be further work done and best practice used for a schedule of meetings post-vesting day. Is that agreed? Sorry, Councillor Austin, did you want to?
Yeah, sorry, the recommendation refers to the wrong bit, doesn't it, 4.1, and then you're saying 6.4, 6.5. I think my personal feeling is I want to ensure full consultation with members and evidence backed up from evidence from councils across the country. I'm not sure 6.4 and 6.5 quite covers that, but that is my hope.
Okay, no, I agree. Let's remove any reference to paragraphs then and just say that we agree on further steps for proposing and agreeing future meeting schedule post-vesting day using best practice and consultation with all members. And relevant officers. Yeah, there's too many. Is that a reasonable recommendation? Okay, is that agreed? Thank you. And then there's a third recommendation. Forgive me if this one has any errors in it. Recommend the proposal for future meeting times for the remainder of the shadow period. So I think we've covered that. Yeah, we've covered it, recommendation 3, so we'll disregard that. Okay, I think that completes that agenda item. Sorry, did you want to say something, Councillor?
Sorry, Chair, if I may, just in terms of meetings of committees before vesting day, one of the meetings I think of relevance to this council is the first meeting of the subcommittee, the constitutional subcommittee. I couldn't quite see a date in the diary for that. I may have missed that, but could you kindly confirm the date of that first constitutional subcommittee meeting, please?
No, Councillor Hulley, it's not been set as yet, and actually I was going to ask the Chair at the end of this meeting if I could just ask subcommittee members to stay behind for a few minutes. The proposal is that there will be 6 meetings, 1 month apart, starting in July, ending in December this year. But I thought while you were all here today, it would be useful to have a conversation and try and set those dates that are convenient to members. Thank you.
Okay, hopefully that's convenient for all the members of the Constitution Subcommittee. I think it's Councillor O'Brien. It's, yeah, Councillor O'Brien, Hulley, Austin, and the other 4 are aware. Okay, that concludes that agenda item. Next agenda item is the committee forward plan. So we've got 2 sets of that. There's the forward plan for this committee and a forward plan for the Constitution Subcommittee. Monitoring Officer, would you like to introduce?
Thank you, Chair. Only really to say that this is intended to be a rolling working document. It's not set in stone by any means at all, but we think good practice is to bring it to every standards committee as the last agenda item, just to seek your feedback so you can see what we're proposing to do at the next item, and in case members want to add anything to the agenda or reconsider timings of things that are planned and programmed to come forwards. There obviously has to be some consideration of resources in terms of the timescales of things, but we've set out a starting point in a draft fashion just to get us up and running with a work programme of what we think is coming forward during the shadow period. But I would emphasise, I'm sure there will be other things that are added to it during that period. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Should there be an item for appointing independent persons for post-vesting day?
Yes, there absolutely should. It is programmed elsewhere, but it will need to come to the Standards Committee, and my suggestion would be probably in March at your last meeting, or potentially in January if you wanted it earlier.
Okay, is everyone happy with in one of these 2 months? Okay, any more questions on the work programme, either parts of it? Councillor Austin?
Thank you. Councillor Hulley, please forgive me if I'm paraphrasing what we talked about last night, but I'm really concerned, I suppose, about the scope of the work for this Constitution Subcommittee. It's going to be significant, isn't it? And I just want to I suppose, flag that, and I'm fully expecting that we will have to hold multiple meetings and the agendas are going to be long, and that's probably not really reflected here in this forward plan. I just wanted to flag that. Did I miss anything?
Through you, Chair, if I may. Yeah, just to echo Councillor Alston's concerns, I think it's to state, dare I say, state the obvious, that the work of the Constitution Subcommittee is critical because we will be planning and putting forward recommendations for a final constitution that is essentially the framework for the new authority post-vesting day. It's critical we get it right. It's critical that it's a constitution that promotes scrutiny at all opportunities. And so we will meet, of course, as you suggested, Susan Sale, after this meeting, but we shouldn't not hold the number of meetings we need to put into the diary for the sake of expediency. We should really take the time and the effort and spend the time and the effort to get it right, because the Constitution will be the bedrock of the new authority post-vesting day.
Thank you, Chair. And I completely agree with what you've said there, Councillor Hulley. It is really critical work, and there is an enormous amount of work to do in a short period, in the shadow period. In terms of additional meetings for the Constitution Subcommittee, though, just bear in mind that that only works if officers have been able to undertake some work to bring forward to those meetings. So actually the resource of officers allocated to the constitutional work is also a really critical issue. At the moment, West Surrey Shadow Authority only has 3 officers, one of which is tasked with dealing with the Constitution. And there are conversations going on at the moment as to where additional resources secured from, but that is really essential because one individual with a busy role already won't be able to bring all of this work forwards. But you make a really good point. It's really critical work, and there may need to be some flexibility of additional meetings as we go through, and I hope that members will be flexible about that. Thank you.
Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, and with regards to what my colleagues have said, there's going to be a lot of work for the Constitution Subcommittee. But I just want to make sure that the Standards Committee, that we ensure that we have enough time to look over whatever decisions are made at the the subcommittee. And will we get sufficient time to look over the decisions that have been made, and they're not just going to be dumped on us, just to make sure we have sufficient time to look over all decisions that are made at the Constitution Subcommittee? Thank you.
Thank you. I think it is scheduled to for the Constitution to come back formally to you as a Standards Committee on 2 occasions, and you would, as a very minimum, obviously have a week's notice of any papers that are published. But what I would suggest is that those subcommittee meetings, members of the Standards Committee can come to them if they want to, and you may want to come and engage at an earlier stage, or you may want to have those papers shared with you by the subcommittee at an earlier stage. But there will be plenty of opportunity for good consultation and engagement, even though the papers may only come to you formally on those 2 occasions.
Thank you. Councillor Morales, did you have your hand up?
It was a very short one. I appreciate there's going to be loads of meetings for this standard constitutional subcommittee, but if anyone finds they're on it and they can't manage all those lots and lots of meetings, any of the committees or subcommittees can be changed by the group leader in proportionality at just a single email from them to our interim monitoring officer. And so if it turns out to be too much work, there will be other people, I'm sure, within each group that can manage it. I actually am also, I've been through many changes of the Constitution in Woking over the last 6 or 7 years. We had a system that was clearly not functioning in the way it should have done, and we completely rewrote the Constitution in 23. Some of the impact of those changes turned out to produce knock-on effects we hadn't envisaged. So we've had several changes since, where we've just said, oh, well, actually, we didn't need to be quite that extreme in our trying to be open and transparent. I'm thinking particularly about delegated powers for officers, where we said we wanted every single condition of everything that was connected to any of the companies that the council owned. It brought in masses of conditions attached to companies coming into the planning committee. And so I think this will be a work in progress after vesting day. We won't know what isn't going to work really well for everything until such time as we put it into practice. And I'm really hoping we can get the very, very best we can. And I do think that once a month will give us a chance to have very meaty discussions on all the different issues we need to look at, and give us a chance to compare what's happening in other constitutions across West Surrey, what works, what doesn't work, and hopefully we can come up with something that is a fresh start. Thank you.
Thank you. I think finally, probably, Councillor Sarbikine.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that we've got to make sure that this is new to all of us. We've never had this before, and same goes to the officers as well. And as a team, we should be supporting each other, not knocking each other down, and also to support the chair, the officers, and everybody. And let's get it right and support it so that we don't go back and look like as if we haven't done our job right. So, and most of all, let's make sure that we are supporting the residents, and they are proud of us because they, after all, they elected us. We didn't get elected just like that. And thank you very much for the officers for all your support today.
Thank you. I think we're just about at the end. It is a great privilege. It is a great privilege to be at the formation of a new council, and this committee has an absolutely vital role in it. So I'm really excited and looking forward to it. And thank you all for your inputs today and for attending. And at that point, I'll declare the meeting closed.